all of the announcements I have. Welcome. Don is now going to let us know what the latest failure is.
The latest failure
on his list.
Well, today I'm going to talk about crisis pregnancy centers, especially in Texas. There was a really good article that just laid out a lot of good stuff, and all my material today comes from there. It was called Money for Nothing. It was in the July 20th, 2018 Austin Chronicle, and it's available online, and I will put it on our blog this afternoon or this evening. If you search for Money for Nothing in Austin Chronicle, you'll find it pretty quick. So it's an expose on what actually goes on in the crisis pregnancy centers here in Texas and why they don't deserve public support. Crisis pregnancy center is kind of a honeypot. It kind of lures in women who are vulnerable and are concerned about whether they can keep their pregnancy or not, with comfort and with care and an ear to listen. And they often look like family planning clinics. They have that sort of vibe about them. And many of them have choice in their names. They do everything, whether ethical or not, to convince women to keep their pregnancies. And they use scare tactics and false medical claims and all sorts of other manipulation, which I'll get into. They do not provide medical services, and many of them don't even have medical licenses, or do they provide any other real services. But they do create delays and confusion and misinformation among the people that happen to be in there. And here's a quote by Abby Johnson that I think says a lot. Abby Johnson is one of the anti-choice poster children. She says, "We want to appear neutral on the outside. The best call, the best client you can ever get is the one that thinks they're walking into an abortion clinic, okay? Those are the best clients that could ever walk into your door or call your center, the ones that think you provide abortions." So apparently they have a pretty good shtick to manipulate those folks. They will tout things like the post-abortion stress syndrome, which is not a thing and not anything that even really exists. They inflate complication rates. They don't discuss the actual risks of childbirth, which are significant. They provide negative and false information about contraceptives. And sadly, the crisis pregnancy centers have secured Supreme Court rights to lie as a First Amendment right. So they actually have they actually have constitutional privilege to do these lies as part of their shtick and their mode of operation. Now, they don't have to, Texas doesn't have to support them, but they do have to allow them to lie if they're going to. On the manipulation front, they won't tell you, let's see, there's another quote here. They won't tell you that whenever they do these things, but it's a very big risk, you will never be able to conceive children. There's about 90% chance that you'll be able to never to have children down the road, and this is false. So these are some of the more of the lies they say. They tend to slut shame victims of rape that come in their door. They kind of tell them that, hey, it's your fault you got raped. One of the more deceptive things they do is they provide sonograms, but they are non-medical, and they're given by unqualified technicians. And the goal here is to show the fetus to the woman to manipulate her into keeping the child. The people that are doing this are not trained, and so if there were a serious birth defect, it would go undiagnosed. And furthermore, the sonogram doesn't count for the one mandated by the state before they have a woman has an abortion. So it's completely a sideshow and a circus for the intent of manipulating these women. There are First Amendment problems here, too. Nearly all of the CPCs are religious-based. They proselytize and preach as part of their services, which is fine if that's private money, but in Texas, they receive significant state funding without oversight or conditions on this, and so this is clearly an entanglement of church and state, and it's Christians all the way down. The Christians are voting for the legislators who are putting these people in. They're doing that as a sop to their base, and it's just Christianity all the way through. There's a lot of funding shenanigans. So the funding has recently been diverted from the temporary assistance for needy families and diverted to these crisis pregnancy centers, or alternatives to abortion is the umbrella term there. Sadly, also, Texas has raided the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, which controls our air pollution, and has been making some inroads there, and they've been defunding that to send money over to the Alternatives to Abortion program to the tune of around $36 million for the 2016 and 2017 biennium. Texas laws have put a lot of restrictions on actual family planning clinics, and there are only 21 of the real clinics that provide contraceptive and actual health care and actually have doctors there and actually prevent a lot of abortions. But yet there are 170 of these fake clinics with lots of state money flowing to them. And meanwhile, the Texas family planning budget has been slashed by 2/3, been cut by $74 million based on ideology. And the legislators are happy to fund this as a sop to their Christian constituents, even though there's little oversight, little transparency, or any measurable benefit from this program. So where does the money go? It goes to anti-choice persuasion. So most of the money goes to counselors who will, brainwash women who are coming into these programs. Another big chunk goes to overhead. The Texas Pregnancy Care Network, the head of that group makes $325,000.
Holy crap.
So we're in the wrong business here. In one example, $18,000 was spent on counseling, while less than $1,000 was spent on food and clothing combined. And there are other cases where the other ratios are smaller. The Round Rock-based Christian Heidi Group got $1.5 million in funding, but $4 million of it was yanked back due to gross mismanagement.
Wait, 4 million of 1.5.
I'm sorry, 5.1 million.
Okay.
Yeah. So at least there was some reprieve there that of some oversight. It was actually a different group that caught them, and there's some potential for Title X funding or Title X funding for CPCs under the Trump administration. The Trump appointee, Diane Foley, formerly of the Life Network, likened abortion to the Holocaust. And so there is a national movement that's pushing this as well. And I encourage folks that are in other states and other countries to examine what's going on in their area and whether it's as bad as Texas. Kathy Miller of the Texas Freedom Network says millions of dollars that could go into helping women who need health care will instead go to demonstrably unqualified anti-abortion group pushing a political agenda. And that describes it pretty well. Once these women who get snarled up in this bear the children, there are few resources from any source to help them. CPCs are not there to provide that help. But Texas leads the nation in maternal deaths, and there's not much being done about that. So we're being unsupportive of the mothers they've tricked into having children, and it seems like nothing more than a type of cruel punishment for not being part of the Christian, mother and father and the Christian mindset. And Christian organizations seem to only become interested in the child again when it reaches the age where it can be indoctrinated. So when Christians are able to work the levers of government, as they are here in Texas, they create what is really a Christian breeding program. They lie and manipulate vulnerable women. They break the law. They perpetuate fraud. They siphon money out of programs that actually help people and give it to their friends. Meanwhile, these Christians have no plans to fund the babies that they are working to manufacture, and it's kind of a pro-life until birth, then screw you. So remember that religions control reproduction because there is no God that can make tithers, and without those tithers, these religions would die on the vine. And human life is only sacred, it seems, and to the extent that the human will tithe down the road. And I consider this another failure of Christianity.
I have a question.